it's something I've seen happening in a lot of topics, that you just have this wave in research, in attention, in whatever. So I'm very happy to be back in the more microbial soil part of the wave. So that's good. And what else was I? Oh, yes, I fully agree with the farmers in the room that that picture I will take home is indeed how fast in 3 years only you can go from structureless clump of something to a really beautifully structured soil, and that's very hopeful. So
yes, it's amazing.
I will take it home.
Okay. Annemie?
What I take home from today?
Yes.
Well, that indeed we should pursue our job at the Soil Service and develop, maybe as quick as possible, this soil biology advisory system.
When can we expect it?
Well, measurements should be expected. That's what I promised my boss in 2023, so very shortly. The only problem we still have, let's say it's not a problem, but it's still something under development, is the advice linked to it, because we can measure it, we can interpret it, but then a difficult job, and it was mentioned several times here today, is how to deal with it, how to move forward, and what management practices can help us. We know certain things, no-till or non-inversion tillage can help us, but well, really to advise the farmer to make steps forward there.
Is there still a question of methodology? Do you know already how to measure in an affordable way? Because if I listen to Koen, some of the analysis that you use are quite expensive, counting bacteria and so on. It's not to ask to agriculture, to farmers.
Yes, but we are not counting bacteria at this moment, but we are looking to, with the PLFA method, to the typical phospholipid fatty acids that are typical for certain of these acids are typical for certain groups in the soil food web, and with such a method you can find out what's the evolution in the soil food web due to
that's the best way to
practices.
Measure for you at this moment?
I think the PLFA method is one of the methods. It might be possible to be used for advisory service.
I agree.
Okay. So the choice is made already.
Well, it will be PLFA, and what we are also measuring at the moment is the microbial biomass, because we believe, and I was very happy to hear in one of the talks that the microbial biomass versus the complete carbon mass in the soil, that's an important indicator, and I fully agree. That's what we do see based on the experiments and the long-term trials in which we have been sampling.
Yes. Richard, I saw you nodding. Same method in US?
We use PLFA because it is inexpensive. It's not the most detailed, but it gives you a good indication of where you are. So for general farming practice, and that it has a lot of utility, and it's working for us in the time being.
Yeah, and Peter, your method is something different, isn't it?
So I make two soil samples, one with sugar, the other without sugar. And then I make two measurements, one before incubation and another afterwards. And I make a third solution from the subsoil, but then only one solution from the subsoil. So it's a method which is also rather quick and not too expensive, but it takes 2 days. And for me, I think you can have a soil report with the result, but you should absolutely go in the field and look for the situation on the field. Only the measurements in a lab from a lab as yours or Eurofins or mine, you should always combine with the structure. So that's the reason I mentioned this building materials and this house, which is ready to live, so that we should consider all things together and have not a narrow look, but a very broad look on the soil. And as a matter of fact, we have spoken about a system.
Yeah.
I consider my way of soil measurement as a system analysis of the soil-plant interaction, of the potential biology. And if this biology I can determine in the test will be in reality active, it depends on the conditions.
Yeah, Emil is nodding now. You are really an example of a farmer that trusted the analysis of Peter and his methodology, and you saw that it worked. You agree that the whole system plays a part in the numbers that you get from the chemical results?
Sometimes I look to the report and I don't understand nothing about it, but if you look very good, you have to learn how to work it, the system. But you have also to trust about the soil life. Soil life do things for you that we don't understand, but if you go with that flow, it works. I see amazing things this year to my plants. What's going to happen? I can tell a whole day about this, but I don't do that.
Yeah.
But the soil life is now I can say it on another way. In my career as farmer, I see a lot of results, and I cannot do nothing with that because I do know how to react my plants. And with Peter, his method, you can see how it works. And I trust this method because I know when I do this, it's complete right. And I have no disaster that it's not too much, but also too low. It's good for the crop how to work with these results.
Okay. Now, a difficult question maybe for the policymakers, the three ladies, let's say. Do you, with the knowledge and examples that we had today, have a definition of a good performing farmer? Because maybe that is what you need to make regulations. Or is this a bad question? I mean, do you have what indicators do you have? Should you have to promote, for example, more healthy soils to be realized in Europe by 2050? How about the definitions and the indicators and then the methodology? Annette?
Super complex question. I try to be really short. So let's start this way. In the soil mission, experts, mission board members said soil health is defined by the capacity of soils to perform this number of
the number of ecosystem services. Range. And there you have indicators for every... Okay, so, I'll wait.
So it means that behind that you have the concept of functional soils and provide ecosystem services. Now, on the indicators, they also proposed a couple of biological, physical, chemical indicators and some more management indicators. Now, we are starting now 2 major projects, quite huge, each of them 12 million euro, to try and look into, first, the suggested soil health indicators, much more reduced than the ones that exist in the US.
And so did you say that they were different from US?
In the US, there's a set of 40.
Okay.
So we reduced
8.
So these projects are going to look into those, but also look into what kind of measurements do member states do in their soil monitoring, and try and develop from there, can we measure these indicators? Or if they're not feasible in the short term, can we develop proxies?
Yes. So Annette, your answer is we are working on it.
We are working on it. In this, just to say, this is important because the soil health law, which just mentioned, which will be proposed mid of next year, is going to need a definition of soil. It's clear we will have a process fed by science to try and harmonize soil monitoring in the EU and get a set of indicators that can describe in different situations soil.
Okay.
So long story.
Long
And
story.
coming
Working
back
on
to your
it.
question on the best performing farmer.
Yeah.
Along these lines, I would say that a farmer is one that does the best out of the soil, given the functions that the soil can.
And given the context.
The context. Some soils will, but they are better in water regulation, or biodiversity, or
Yeah.
so that kind of thing. So this would be for me good farmer.
Okay.
But for this, we need to have the tools
Mm-hmm.
to pay farmers for the service.
Okay, that's another story.
Another story.
But very important, I think. Yes, I see some people nodding. Yes, money. Yes. Take the microphone.
Sorry. Theo said this day, the farmers are the doctors of the future. Now, what I found studying cow fodder quality, we have a very simple criterion for the quality of cow fodder. If all the nitrogen which we feed to the cows is protein, true protein, and not ammonia and not nitrate, and all these inorganic compounds, then we have a very good product. And it is about growing crops for human consumption. So I will propose to introduce a simple measurement of the quality of crops, because if we have crops which support our health, well, it's
then the system where they come from must be good.
That's correct.
Okay. And did you talk already to your own government about this?
I send them letters.
Okay. We will not ask further.
Never became an answer.
I was asking Annemie, same question, Annemie. No. First, Martin. Martin, you were preparing already your definition of a good performing farmer.
Not really, but if you say a farmer, is it towards soil health, or is it farmer as a whole? Because I mean, a farm is an enterprise, so first of all, they have to make a living out of it, and of course, they also have to look at future. And if we see it, we have been seeing it over the last years that climate is changing, for example. So you need to prepare your soils that they can cope with drought, with heat, with water excess, whatever is happening. And so I think it's indeed necessary that they take very good care of their soils and make them as resilient and as flexible as possible.
Yes, that's what I meant in soil management, good performing in soil management. Are there any indicators growing in your mind? I mean, on the Flemish level, do you have already a system of how should we bring that into one map?
That is definitely not an easy question.
I know.
You have the easy indicator, of course, and that is soil carbon. And of course, then you still have to differentiate it between the different types of carbon, or you could differentiate. That's an easy one, because we heard it a few times today that if you feed your soil biodiversity well, then they will thrive and it will be okay. But there are so many things, and definitely I agree that you should not only measure in the lab, but that you should go out and have a look at your soil. Whenever you see this beautifully structured soil, then you know that most likely it's very okay, because you can see that infiltration will be okay. You can see there will be little erosion. So please also look at your soil and don't just analyze it.
Yeah. I'm looking to you, dear members of the audience, because maybe you think regulation and definition was about, but at the end of the day, I think there is a lot of ambition here to improve soils and to go back to the practice and have experiments that improve the soils. But then maybe you expect policymakers to be supportive and to take the right decisions and give the right framework. So maybe it's not so unusual to enter into this. You're one of the board member of WERVEL. Okay. I give you a microphone. That will be easier for you. Please.
The GG, the EU question. So we hear a lot today about pesticides, chemicals being bad. I'll just say it simply for me, since I'm a non-scientist. Now, how is the EU policy going to move, let's say, the EU taxonomy regarding the industry of fertilizers and pesticides and all that? What is the link with, let's say, the soil? Are you aware of the EU taxonomy and whether that industry fits in it or not?
I try to interpret your question in, should you go on allowing systems that are counterproductive for what we want to reach with healthy soils?
Yes. How are we making that transition quicker, maybe?
Now we have DG Agri pesticides or DG Sante, another Director General. But anyway, I try to look to Annette.
So, you were hinting at the Green Deal targets of reducing pesticide use by 50%, nutrient losses by 30%, isn't it? Fertilizer use by 50% by 2030 already. So that's a big ambition. Now, I'm not aware, honestly, it's not my daily job. In the taxonomy discussion, I'm not aware of any mentioning of pesticides. So I have a colleague here who's nodding or not, so please correct me. I'm not aware of this. So I really cannot answer to that. Maybe I have a colleague here who's more knowledgeable maybe than me, Emmanuel Pitel.
Okay. Who are you? And what can we say about pesticides and so on?
I'm a colleague from Hanet, and I'm working in a unit more involved in a CAP definition with some standard requirement.
Okay.
Just before going in taxonomy, in our DG Agri, we try to.
Do you hear what is told here? You should speak louder. Maybe stand up, look at the audience, and yell.
I will try to reply.
Recapitulate.
Even I will not completely address to your question. I want to say we are involved in the reflection of taxonomy in DG Agri, but with other DG ILVO or DG Climat, whatever. But today there is no text, and there will be maybe next step some delegate act to define taxonomy. But before going in this direction, we consider, in fact, inside of the CAP and the new CAP, there is already some relevant requirement, relevant intervention who can address the fact CAP will contribute to improve at some stage some protection of natural resources for biodiversity. Look, we have already some requirement inside of the CAP, requirement to be applied by the farmer. It's a big challenge for the farmer. We have introduced some basic requirement, and we have some basic requirement as regards the soil. Even is a common practice, but we try to impose a crop rotation across Europe to have a minimum soil cover for the soil across Europe is a requirement for the farmer, and we consider that as a good add value for CAP, and we want to communicate on that before to go into taxonomy.
Okay, so they are working on it. Other question, please, please keep the microphone. I have another question for you. In this process of finding this new taxonomy and so on, do you talk with farmers and do you talk with researchers? Maybe they have good suggestions. Annette, of course.
No, I mean, this is all the thing about that we don't enter now in the whole process how policies are developed, but you have impact assessments, you have expert groups, you have ex post analysis of the previous common agricultural policy, we have the research program, advice. So I think that the interactions is there. And then some of you may know the European Innovation Partnership, EIP Agri, which is all about really bringing solutions from research closer to practice. We have various mechanisms to do so. I think it's super successful, bringing really research and farmers, advisors together. So I think that's already very good practice.
So we are going home knowing that our best practices and our results, research results, will be taken into account. That's correct, isn't it? Jeroen. Richard, you want to comment on it, says Jeroen.
Yeah,
go on.
It's one of the puzzles we got at the moment. There's so many things that are out of whack and causing negative things to life on Earth as well as our human health. And this is at the core of many of them. Some of the stuff we've spoken today is at the very center of providing solutions. We structured our research not just to try and understand little bits that are disconnected, but to go and find people with some data who are producing a very good job now and improving key elements like soil carbon, which has so many ramifications for whether things work or don't. So these are things that need to be taken into account down the road. We know certain things are not very healthy, that are reducing the health of soils with devastating effects on all sorts of things. And we basically have to deal with it. At the moment, people are just carrying on trying to earn money and earning a living, but causing damage to their land. And many of them don't know what to do. They don't even know, they're not aware of these problems. So this is just the beginning of making people aware, and then step by step, getting closer to actually containing some of the serious problems we've got. And we've got enough belly serious problems anyway throughout the world. But these are things we have to deal with. The soil is such a fundamental thing to life on Earth that we really have to look after it. Otherwise, it was 4 or 5 years ago, the year of the soil. They said we've got 40 years left unless we change the way we do business. Have we changed anything? No, we've progressed with some of our research, but we're not reaching many people. We discussed this yesterday with the farmers. There's about 5 to 10% of people who think like they're looking for something better. They know there's a problem. You can reach them easily, but we got to reach 60 to 80%. And yeah, it's got lots of political problems associated with it. So which of the current really serious problems do we diminish? And the thing is, you've got to deal with them all.
Yeah.
This impinges on many of the climate things, as well as human health. Human health is being seriously, in our country, in the States, human health is terrible. You know, if you want to go to an unhealthy place, go to the States. And I went there because I was escaping something else. So, but we need to deal with these things so that we actually deal with them. And that's in South Africa, you know, talking amongst all the different multicultures there, the Indaba, the discussion, you've got to sit down with key people, bring it to their awareness, and slowly work society towards actually providing solutions and then implementing them.
A nice call to action. Koen, I want to you to tell something about this trial platform near Ghent. We have 50 hectares, because maybe that is a nice example of how you try to reach the farmers, yes, monthly, yearly, with results of agroecology.
Yeah. This the experimental platform at Hansbeek. It's a farm from Felix de Boussy. It's a typical farm. It's a farmland. It's from a landowner, but he decided to start to manage his land himself because it was rented to farmers, and they were just cultivating maize. So he switched to organic agricultural and then to an agroecological system. But he's still cooperating with his neighbors, so he's still there's still a link because he has an arable farm with a lot of leguminous crops, but also the grass clover lace, and so he can sell this grass clover to the dairy farms in the neighborhood, and that these are also conventional farmers. And they also get inspired by the system Felix elaborated, and together with his consultant. And we as ILVO, we have the possibility to monitor the system, and we have also the possibility to perform experiments in the frame of certain European projects there. So it's, yeah, so it's becoming really a lighthouse in that way. And I think.
And what about dissemination, and what about communication with farmers? What about their interests? What is your experience there? We have some demonstrative activities there. Are they coming to farmers?
We have yearly a demo day there, but we have also, so that where all kind of people are invited, also policy makers and researchers and farmers. But we have also some projects for specific topics. For example, old wheat varieties, and also for that we invite the farmers to come and have a look to the system and to the results of the project. And the pilot is also a case in a European project, Agromix, about more mixedness in the agricultural system. So
yeah, and so on and so on. A lighthouse place, demonstrative. You are welcome, and there is a lot of Dylan. Show yourself. The organizer, co-organizer, is one of the communicators of this trial platform, and you do their best to tell what is happening there. I'm looking to you because, of course, you need to participate as much as you can and ask questions to all those panelists here in front. And then if you are lacking inspiration, I have some questions of my own. But who are you and what do you want to know or to say?
My English not go good, but...
je mag in het Nederlands spreken ook als je wil.
No, I try. Talking about human health, we have a problem in Flanders with dioxin. For example, the eggs of biological chickens is a problem. How long dioxins stay in the soil? That's one of my questions.
Okay. Who can answer this very specific question? If we have a dioxin toxic polluted soil, how long does it take to recover from it? Anybody? Koen? Somebody in the room? Peter? Richard.
As with most things, it's situationally dependent. It depends what the problem is and how severe it is. So we've developed, there's actually a lot of microbial solutions to detoxifying things, but they do take some time, but they don't solve all the problems. But you've actually got to stop bad practices that are actually creating those situations at the same time as developing solutions for them.
Close the tap and see how fast we can go in a certain situation. That's the answer. Another question. Ennio Fuck, one of the colleagues from ILVO.
Hi, I have a question for Emil. So you've been on quite a journey with this. I heard you were first interested in doing something positive, then you met Peter, and he still had to convince you, I heard, that he wasn't just saying whatever, so you had a lot of experiments, and now you're here, so you're actually kind of being an ambassador. Congratulations, thank you. I was just wondering, in an ideal scenario, what would help you even more to be that ambassador to other farmers, for example? So you have your project and you're doing your thing, you're here today. How could that be increased? Because we talked about reaching more farmers. What would you need to do that?
It's a very good question.
Yes, it is. peer-to-peer learning seems to be very powerful. So if farmers talk to farmers, that's what we want.
That's the biggest problem I have on my farm, to show to other farmers what I'm doing. But they are looking to my farm, what I'm doing, like no tillage. 10 years ago, I decided to do that. I don't want to plow anymore my ground. And everybody was laughing at me. Also, the financial bank said, don't do that to 2 hectares. But
really? Wow.
now, really, even the guy who advised me says, don't do that because it's a big disaster you're going to do. But I believe in this, but and I trust on myself to do it. But also, I did all the 50 hectares because I know if I do 2 hectares, how long does it take to do all the ground on my farm? So I decided to do that. But I see also a lot of problems. But the knowledge that I know now how to do it, I should do it on another way because now I have the knowledge. I didn't learn it at school. I know how to farm at school with plowing, with chemical, with all the other stuff you throw on the ground. But it is then on that moment when I was on school, I think what are we doing now? But then also I thinking about that what maybe it can on another way. But I didn't know that because we all go in that system, and that's the problem. And
how we are 2022, you have been some years of experience. How do your colleague farmers, neighbors look at you now?
They don't understand me.
Yet, not yet. Did their reaction change already a little bit?
They see now what you see on fields from the neighbors and my field, and then you see the difference. So
are they jealous?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I do my how do you say that? I go my way to show it how to do it, and if they wondering how to do that, they can ask me.
But what Ennio asked was, are you prepared to be more than today, be an ambassador and a teacher? Because apparently schools are not up to date. That's what Jeroen already said. Schools, farmer schools today are not up to date with the new systems.
I'm getting a little bit nervous, but sometimes I don't find me a farmer. It's my way to tell it that it can be on another way. And like Peter, he have methods to show how it works. So I have now the proof that it works. And that's the only way you can tell to other colleagues that you have to that you can work on that on that way.
Maybe a very nice question. And of course, we should already conclude that our school system, farmer school system, are there any people from educational systems here in the room? Do you want to say something about that? Do you want to make a promise?
Well, as you can tell, we're already here, so that's the first step. I was wondering if you have some advice for schools how we can turn this around, because we also have problems like convincing our colleagues about this content, I guess. So it's a similar issues, but perhaps we can have some advice from our experts on how to handle this.
In the meanwhile, I will ask another teacher. I think I heard Richard and I heard also Emile saying, well, there were some failures as well. Is that relevant to talk about that? Because now maybe we get the impression everything goes smoothly and successful. Richard first.
So I'll answer that in a roundabout way. The opening talk we had today mentioned the history of how the farmers have come up with innovative things, and everyone is rude to them and says that's rubbish, and it turns out to be a good thing. So, you know, the farming community itself, who actually does the farming, is an absolute key to moving forward and moving it to a better place. Education has got to basically learn from them and carry on. Now, failure is not failure. It's you've learned something. So whenever you in life, at every stage of life, you'll try different things and sometimes you'll fail. So you got to pick yourself up, shake, and actually correct that and learn from it.
Do you think we should communicate those failures or moments of learning as well?
You have to.
For example, in research, I'm looking to Anton and I'm looking to Koen. If an experiment does not give good results, then it is not made public. Then there is no scientific, or is it? Is it true? Or am I now misunderstanding things?
We did the mulch experiment and it was a bad result. I didn't publish, but we did show on the demo day.
Yes.
This experience.
Yes.
It was not so nice to show, but it was, yeah, we could learn something about that. And we
and
showed,
also the farmers can learn from what went wrong.
Who showed, to whom showed it, we could learn something about that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, yeah.
Anton?
Yeah, maybe my own experience. I did a worm trial last 3 years and 2 times it failed.
Why?
The first time, the farmer who had given the slurry, he was a partner in the project, had given anti-worm products.
These animals.
With animals.
They were very well working.
Yeah, the worm said do it yourself. Second time, we got worms from a worm fish grower, and they had coccidiose.
Okay.
And all the worms in the worm beds came up and died. So that was the second one. And the thing is that I analyze all the materials we used for residuals of pesticides. But the result was not convincing. So in fact, now we don't know why it didn't work.
But is it relevant for you to tell about it?
Now,
to have this more nuanced vision of recipes working or not working, or better working than others?
But now the provincial government said you must make a brochure for farmers how to do it not. And then I thought, okay, but first I want a success.
Okay,
so now farmers are doing in practice with me trials to come in a situation
to have it optimized.
The animal thing is going to be eaten by worms.
Okay, thank you very much, Anton. We have another teacher.
Yes, I'm a teacher, but
are you in a farming school, in landbouw school?
I teach at Landwijzer, and I just wanted, because the other teacher asked for advice. Landwijzer just started with a little project, you're aware, but it's for teachers in agricultural education, and we have a little project on agroecology.
Teach the teacher.
Teach the teacher, yeah, it's very new.
Okay, it's hopeful. Thank you very much for this intervention. You get an applause. Are you also a teacher? No, another question. I'm curious what you want to ask. To whom?
Yeah, so good afternoon. So my question is concentrating on what's working, and it's a question for the farmer. I'm actually wondering, so what do you do with those ingredients coming from your field where you use regenerative practice? And it's maybe also a question for everyone here. So what do we need to put in place so that next year during the break, so we can have a croissant or a sandwich made with ingredients coming from regenerative agriculture?
Okay, that was a nice suggestion. Thank you very much. Another question that I want to ask, because I'm not sure that I understood well. I heard some of you tell about there is a certain threshold until where we can go in carbonizing our soils. And then I hear the Americans say, no threshold. It keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. How much did you report? What percentage? 16%, or what do I remember?
Yes, so
is there a threshold in carbonizing the soils?
That's a very good question. So one of the oldest experiments in the world was done at Rothamsted in England. It's been going for over 100 years. And they showed after many years, it started plateauing off.
Okay.
But you've got to go back to the original description of how they managed that to understand why they plateaued off. So they started off, their normal systems there were to graze early in spring. They'd graze a whole area. And then as the grass growth increased, the grazing was on a smaller portion, and then they would cut hay on the other and either feed it on the field or inside a barn or something. So they carried on doing that, and the carbon was basically going up under that perennial grass system. But then it got expensive, so they made it smaller, and eventually...
Why was it expensive?
In research, as in academia,
okay,
you can do certain things, and you need money to carry these things on. And we need that long-term research because it's really, really important to know what happens in the future. So eventually, it got down to the point where they were grazing small little portions. They weren't even cutting any hay anymore, and they were grazing with sheep. And then they didn't even do that. They cut the grass and weighed it and turned it into ash and put it back again. Now, we've been speaking today about earthworms and dung beetles and things like that are absolutely pivotal to maintaining in the evolution of grasslands with grazing animals. They're pivotal in high carbon. So when you take out some of the key elements, but because of the way you ran the experiment, you're going to cause it to change. And it's my hypothesis that that's what caused that plateauing off. To back us up, we've been measuring for 16 years in North Dakota and in Saskatchewan on 2 farmers who nearly went broke. So they went completely organic because they couldn't get any money from the banks to buy fertilizer and stuff. So they used the old methods that our grandparents knew. They put them into practice, and everything came right because they were doing all the old things based on the biology. They've been going 15, 16 years. They started off at 0.5% of organic matter, infiltration rates of 0.5 inch an hour. After 10 years, they were exceeding an infiltration rate of 8 inches an hour.
Yeah, we saw the numbers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the organic carbon now in certain of their fields is up at 16%. The NRCS people there, still the original person who started that, is carrying on measuring there, and they are still increasing.
Yeah. But does it keep on increasing all the time? Do we have to say an optimal point, or do we have to say a maximal point? And where is the maximal? Is there a maximal?
I have just told you we do not know.
Okay.
Because we haven't studied it for long enough, and we haven't had the right methodology in our research to answer such an important question.
Annemie.
Yeah, I would like to add on that. I do believe there is a threshold, and well, I'm not talking about pastures or grassland because that's really
another system or another context.
Land where we have now a long-term trial since 1995, so really long-term, 27 years, where we have been adding compost in different ratios and different frequencies. And there, indeed, we could see that the carbon levels went up. They have been stabilizing, especially in the plots where we excessively added compost. In the others, they are still adding up. And then we are talking about 2% organic carbon. That's important because sometimes we talk about organic
matter
carbon and
yes,
organic matter.
Yeah, it's different. So, yes, okay.
4% organic matter. Now we see it stopping off, and we have been doing some more in-depth research there with a PhD student. And what was very interesting was that especially if you apply high dosages of compost or any other organic material, and I'm talking 45 tons, which is really high dosage, we do see that the soil has difficulties to cope with the incorporation of this excessive amount of carbon. And so that's the first thing. So the carbon is less incorporated. It's more in the macro aggregates and less in the micro aggregates. which makes it more vulnerable to mineralization. So then you lose again the carbon, let's say. And we have also seen that at a certain level, actually proportionally, you will have more mineralization in arable land of this carbon. So if you go above a certain threshold, you do have more mineralization proportionally compared to the amount of carbon.
First Koen, and then Richard, and then Peter.
I just want to answer that quickly. You are absolutely correct. But what the upper levels that we're reaching now in these long-term things we've been following reach what we know historically at around about 16%. So I would suggest that we will actually plateau off at that high level because it's controlled by the climate. And that's what we're finding in the cropping systems.
Yes. So then we do not talk about regenerative because it is regenerated. We have to talk about carbonized soil or something. Well, I don't know. It's a question of words. Koen.
That 3-year experiment I showed in the conventional vegetable system, we also saw that a frequent, a yearly application of 15 tons of compost compared with a yearly application of 45 tons of compost, that with the lowest dose, the carbon was more effective. And I think also, about that threshold, I think building up soil organic matter with external sources, with compost, is not that effective, but then building up organic matter with a rooting system, and probably with a rooting system, rooting the soil, you can reach much higher carbon than with fertilization.
First, Peter, and then a question or a remark from the audience.
Yeah, I asking myself always, why do they do a test with a quantity of compost which no farmer can give legally?
Well, at the time the experiment started, it was completely legal. So.
Yeah, okay. No, but I think we should do a test in normal conditions. And I cannot imagine that there are farmers which will give these quantities of compost. And for me also, with a very good root depth, then you get more organic matter in the soil. And that they should talk about this in the schools. Yeah, because we ended, as a matter of fact, this discussion about the school system. Farmers where I come for measurements, they say, oh, what you tell, I understand, but it's the direct opposite of everything I learned until now.
Yes, Peter, but we were into that. We had the schools, they promised to work on it.
I had the proposition for the high school in Geel, where I studied myself, to come and make it a day for the students for free, to explain them what I'm doing. They never organized it.
Okay.
I called 3 times.
A bit shameful.
They don't want this.
Okay. Maybe you should persevere. Here is a question from the room. Who are you?
Lieselot van der Weke, Proterra Agro, working for a whole lot of years with mycorrhizal fungi, beneficial soil organisms, combining them with intercrops and how they can be a host to actually stimulate and get life going again in our cropping systems. As I work a lot in tropical perennial systems, so you can imagine a banana standing there, or cacao, or coffee, or those tropical systems where soil erosion and weather conditions are really heavy on the soil, and the uptake of carbon and let's say building up carbon in the soil. If we can get to 3%, we're already very happy in that sense. What I was wondering in this compost trial that Bodemkundige Dienst did, what was growing on there? Because if I recall well, we have plants getting the carbon out of the atmosphere into our soils. If I recall well, 40 to 70% of this carbon produced is then via the roots fed into our microbial community in the soil. So my question is a bit, don't we have to think about having this microbial condition community there always by the form we do farming, meaning having plants, having our soils covered so that this microbial community can stay there, and then make sure that we keep it going with this. I think in that sense, yes, you will have a plateau if you throw on carbon and there's nobody to eat it.
That's what Chris said, maybe.
So in that sense, also arable cropping systems, we might have to think or rethink. I know of arable farmers that are no longer tilling and throwing their seeds just on top of the land together with leguminous crops. And it's going quite well, if I understand well. So I think this is key in this soil health, that our soils are not made to be bare and UV damaging.
Okay.
You ask a rhetoric question, I think.
I will comment on that. So luckily the farmer where we have this trial is a farmer who really takes care of soil and soil quality. So first of all, he has an example rotation with every 2 years winter wheat, which is deep rooting. And then in between, he has sugar beets, which is also still deep rooting. Potato and carrots can be there, but every 2 years we have winter wheat. And if the land after winter wheat, it will have a cover crop, a mixture of cover crops, actually. So the soil is covered. And looking at soil biology, we did have opportunities within European projects, for example, to look at the soil biology. And we do see that soil biology, there is more diversity and there is more microbial biomass. So in general, there is more activity. So we really do see that, and it's true what Koen said, it's a combination of adding carbon inputs, but to me also the crops you grow are key to a good soil health. And so we do see that this system is working, and in years where we have severe droughts, we do see that the plots where we have active soil life, where we have high carbon, they do perform better. In years where we have heavy rainfall, we also do see that the plots that have higher carbon do better because the structure of the soil simply allows better infiltration, is more resistant to erosion and things like that. So we do see that there the carbon is the key of the puzzle where a lot of things actually fit on.
A question from the audience, and I'm watching the time. We are nearly in the last round of discussion. Who are you and what do you want to say?
Hello, I'm Sam. I'm a farmer myself, and I cannot agree with the thing you were telling about. I know the farmer quite well also, where is the test of the in Battersum, and he's a very good farmer. He's taking very good care of his soils, but in a very conventional way. And if you change the management of this farm, I think you can reach much more. And that's the thing we always trying to do here now in the end again. And that's what I don't understand. We tried unit in hokjes. How you
to make compartments of the conventional farmers and the alternative.
Yeah, we specialize in one thing and we look how it's not working. We are reaching a plafond of 2%, but it's in that way of farming. And we are just learning today that there are so many other ways of farming where we can reach much better conditions.
But what is your question? Do you want to ask about risk of leakage or?
No, I don't have a question. I'm just, it's just a discussion. We are always putting. Yeah, we have a scientific test, and we see, oh, this is the data, and then we take an analysis. But we just hear whole day from speakers like Richard and Chris that we don't know nothing.
We don't know why things are as they react.
So, and I think we see many things of pioneers like Peter or other people. They are seeing things they cannot explain it, but we are seeing much.
It works.
It works. And it's so interesting, and that is how we need to reach the farmers. We need to just have inspiring people. We don't need policymakers or scientists no. We need inspiring people, like people in the field. We are going out to the farmers and show what is happening and what we can do. Like Emil, like here are many others in the room, and that's what we need.
Yes. But I do agree. And the microphone. Oh, wow. Wow, good. Yes. I was just trying to have sympathy for the policymakers who maybe might think, yeah, but if I have to work about regulations, I need to be sure, I need to have thresholds, I need to know about risks in other areas, maybe the emissions, etc., etc. So I need really to have a documented system. No or yes? Okay, bad question then. I give you the floor.
Thank you. Well, one word is still missing in this room,
okay,
which is succession.
What do you mean?
Succession.
From farmer to the son of farmer?
vegetation.
No.
The succession of vegetation. So the whole discussion today is about annual crops. And with annual crops and adding compost, yes, of course you have a threshold. But when you think in succession...
Rotation, you mean rotation?
No,
No.
Succession. So when you go from pioneers with annual crops towards a forest.
Okay.
So if you think in creating a forest, so if you contribute to creating a successional system, the sky is the limit. Because you're accumulating light into Mother Earth, and this amount of light is unlimited.
But you're not talking about nature, you are talking about
Farming.
Food production.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
in forest system then.
In forest systems, yes. And then the sky is the limit because the light is unlimited. And when you are farming with only annual crops, there is a threshold, of course, because that's where you stop the succession.
Okay. Who wants to react on this? Peter? Short? 5 minutes left.
The aim of my OrganicForest, because I'm convinced that we should take part ecology from the forest in agriculture. It means carbon is the key to control the nitrogen. Yeah, when there are problems with mineral nitrogen. And that you can fix with wood chips, for instance, yeah, or another source of carbon.
Okay.
And I think we can here make a discussion what's the maximal organic matter content of a soil. But if the average organic matter content is very low, then this would not be my greatest concern.
No.
Until we all reach 10%, it will take a few years, I think.
Yes.
And then we can think about it if there is a maximum.
Okay.
Let's start, let's growing this percentage and not thinking about is there a certain maximum.
No. Anton, very short, because I have one question, last question from the audience.
I have a suggestion for our politicians and others. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of artificial nitrogen fertilizers.
Yes.
I've calculated that 40% of the ammonia from agriculture comes from artificial nitrogen fertilizers.
Okay.
Today we heard that we don't need them.
Okay.
So the first thing we can do is slow down and stop in a few years with artificial nitrogen fertilizer.
Okay. Okay. Last question. Anton.
Hi, Anton, agricultural and a very small scale farmer. I want to pick in on what Sam said. There are a lot of exciting things happening in the field, farmers experimenting with things that just don't reach policymakers. Policymakers often don't know what's happening in the fields, and there's a major gap between policymakers and field and academia and the field. How do you plan on bridging that gap? Because often policies are made that farmers have to deal with, don't need to deal with, don't want to deal with, but have to deal with because it's just a policy, it's the law. While a lot of exciting things that are happening in the field just don't make it up to the policymakers and stay hidden.
Okay, wait. And last question, and then it's the same thing? No. Okay. So you don't want the floor anymore?
An answer to this question.
An answer from whom of the panelists? It sounded a bit like an attack.
I can give it a first go. It's not an attack, but if you see, so again, I don't want to minimize any of these very valid arguments. The thing that we have in policies, you try and develop a policy for now in the EU 27 member states, right? We know from soils is so different from a patch to another one. So the way that policies move is that you develop a very broad framework with a menu of measures. I'm talking about the CAP. Now you break this down, this is broken down at member states level. Member states then define which measures they take from this menu for their farmers to receive funding, subsidies. So we try to really give it more subsidiarities, is the keyword, to give decisions down to a more regional, local level. But of course, we give some guidance based on science, based on practice, which kind of measures qualify to be on a menu. So this is where really the science meets the policy and the local dimension, the regional dimension. So this is one thing. And the other thing was mentioning with this EIP Agri, what I think we've been trying to do large scale in Europe is to extract from science the solutions that are more easy to adopt, but they're not there yet, and disseminate. So we're not telling you you have to do this or that, but it's an offer. It's like the menu saying we have a range of solutions that should be scaled up.
Yeah. Okay. This is okay. I'm sorry. This was yes. Thank you. Oh my God, you are so motivated. Okay. Shall I break my own rules? One sentence.
No, one sentence is just to complete what Annette said, because 2022 was a key year, because as regards the CAP, as Annette said, we have a common framework. We have designed a new CAP. Even we start not from scratch, because the CAP is there from a long time ago, but we try to design a new framework. But
what is this? The end of the sentence.
The end of the sentence. This year, we let member states to design their own CAP plan. And we have a dialogue with member states during this year, how to define some intervention to target some farmer concern. And I think after is a dialogue between regional administration or national administration. In Belgium, we have 2 regional administrations, Wallonia and Flanders. And today, there was a dialogue between stakeholders and administration. Administration came to see the EU policymaker to discuss on their plan and how to design convenient intervention. Even there is some flexibility to design intervention.
Okay.
But anyway, there was a dialogue.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are not really completely finished with this dialogue. It's just a start. I had a lot of questions prepared. You, Jeroen, had probably also other ideas to throw on the table, but as it is 5 o'clock, as there is another tomorrow and another tomorrow, we must maybe promise to do this over and have more results and more dialogue and more discussion. I thank very much the members of this panel. Thank you very much, Richard, and you will have a small present. Thank you very much, Koen. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Martine. Thank you, Annemie. Thank you, Emile. Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Anton. And of course, thank you very much for your sustained attention and participation in this conversation. I thought it was very interesting. I think soil matters are utmost interesting but complex. We are still at the beginning of understanding, and we are seeing things when we do things and take measures. Very interesting. I wish you a good evening. Thank you very much for coming, and I see you back next time.